art and architecture during the time period of Palas. So here in today's class, we will understand what contribution the rulers or the kings of Pala dynasty has given in the field of art and architecture. When we talk about architecture, we know very well that Dharmpala, who was the second ruler, he was a very fond of constructing new buildings, monuments, or temples. So Vikramshila was a monastery which he actually built for the Buddhist monks, as he was the follower of Buddhism. And Vikramshila in the present time is in Bhagalpur. Now, the Pala rulers were the patrons of Buddhism as well as of Hinduism. So they gave respect to all the religion. But yes, among the rulers, we saw that there were rulers who were completely following Buddhism, but they never imposed this religious belief on their subjects. Now, the Pala dynasty, what kind of architecture element was there, which is very distinctive from the other dynasties which were existing during the same time period. So we saw the two very beautiful type of technique which they were using, not sort of type of technique, but yes, the process of creating beautiful art. That is, first was the rulers of Pala dynasty. They used to ornamented with image of various deities, either made up of bronze or carved on black stone. So they used to prefer in metal bronze more than any other metal. And when we talk about stone, so they used to prefer black stone, on which the carving used to done. If we talk about the structure or terracotta, so it is mostly made by bronze metal. And when we saw the architectural design and use of kind of stone, we saw the maximum time the usage of black stone. Now, apart from this, when we talk about another contribution of the Pala rulers in the field of learning and education, we cannot forget about the Nalanda University. Nalanda University, again, it is in Bihar, and it was founded by Dharampala only, as Dharampala was very keen, was having very keen interest towards the art, architecture, learning and education. So he was very curious and very dynamic ruler of the time. He actually founded Nalanda University, which was one of the most famous universities, not only in India, but throughout the world. It was the hub, it was the center for Buddhist learning. So people from different countries used to come and used to study in the Nalanda University from the best faculty for the Buddhism studies. Now, in the next slide, you can see on the left hand side, there is Mahabodhi temple. This is the glimpse of Mahabodhi temple. Here you can see the carving style, how they have carved it so beautifully. And on the another side, right hand side, you can see the ruins of Nalanda University. These are the ruins of Nalanda University during that the early time period, early medieval time period. This university was very well established for the Chinese learners or the Chinese students who used to Chinese students, as well as the people who were the followers of Buddhism from different parts of the world. But yes, I can say that mostly Buddhism followers were from the East Asian countries. So most of them used to visit here in India for or to take their education, or to take education from the university which was specifically for Buddhism, studies and Buddhist studies, and the Buddhist studies was very famous in Nalanda University, which was mainly built for this purpose only. So this was the contribution of Pala rulers or Pala kings in the field of art, architecture, and learning. That's all for today's session. Thank you so much. The Rashtrakutas. Now let's first understand by its geography. First of all, Rashtrakuta is one of the most prominent, one of the most popular dynasty or kingdom which we can see in the, which is emerging basically, which was emerging in the Deccan part of India, and which ruled prosperously for long duration. So let's understand the geography. Northwestern Deccan is the main area where, or the region where the Rashtrakutas were extended. Now, what is the Deccan, what all states come under the Deccan part of India? First, let's understand this. So in today's time, there are main 4 states which comes under the Deccan part of India. First, we see Maharashtra, then there is Karnataka, then there is Telangana, and there is Andhra Pradesh. So here we see that there is northwestern part, which was basically the main center for Rashtrakutas region. So northwestern part mainly covers Maharashtra, Karnataka, and yes, some part of Telangana. Now, what was the capital of Rashtrakutas? The capital of Rashtrakutas was Malkhed. Now, where is Malkhed? Malkhed in present time is in Karnataka. Now, who was the first ruler of Rashtrakutas? The Rashtrakutas now, as we have understood the geography, so the area of today's Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Telangana, although we saw the emergence of Satavahanas near the same area during ancient time period, but after that, there was no specifically, if we will talk about the Deccan part, we didn't saw any powerful emerging kingdom or dynasty over that area. It was only with the end of ancient period and the starting of medieval period when we saw again there is another regional kingdom which is rising up or which is coming up into the power, and that was the Rashtrakutas. Danti Durga was the founder of this kingdom or dynasty, and some other prominent rulers of the dynasty were Krishna I, Govinda III, Amogha Varsha, and Indra III. These are some very, very important, prominent or popular kings of the Rashtrakuta dynasty. Now, when we talk about Rashtrakutas, Rashtrakutas location, as we can clearly see in the map of India, it is coming at the slightly, middle part of the India. So they have to protect themselves from all 4 horizons around them. When we look into the conflict, Chalukyas were basically in the western part. Today's time we can see Gujarat and the places near it. So Chalukyas were there. Pallavas were at the we can say a southern part, and Palas were of course in the eastern part. Pratiharas, as we have done in the previous session also, that Pratiharas were in the Kannauj. Their capital was Kannauj. So they of course they will naturally come into the northern part. So Chalukyas at west, Pallavas at south, Palas at east, and Pratiharas at north. And Rashtrakutas were coming at the center of all these 4 powerful regional kingdoms. So due to this reason, Rashtrakutas were always engaged in the conflicts. And they were in, because these regional kingdoms, there was no central authority, and due to this reason, the regional kingdoms always, they were in a tussle, they were always in a clash with each other. And this was the whole picture of the early medieval time period. So when we talk about the conflicts, so that's obvious that yes, the rulers of Rashtrakutas, they were always in a conflict with the ruler of Chalukyas, Pallavas, Palas, and Pratiharas. But when we look into one incident where Dhruv, who was the ruler of Rashtrakuta, and Vatsrajan was the ruler of Pratihara. We know that Pratiharas were very much dominant in the northern part of India, specifically when they made Kannauj as their capital. But Dhruv, who was the ruler of Rashtrakuta, very soon he defeated Vatsarajan, who was the ruler of Pratihara during that time. And for a very short span of time, they conquered Kannauj. But they were not able to retain Kannauj for a longer period of time. And there is a reason, because Kannauj was the center where the other, even the Palas and the other regional kingdoms, they were looking up to that area. And the significance, we have already discussed that the land was having so much productive soil, fertility, availability of water. So this all things led to increasing the value of that land, increasing the value of that region. So although Dhruv defeated Vatsarajan and conquered Kannauj, and just took power or control over that area, but they couldn't retain it for a longer period of time, because they were they just lacked of their resources, or we can say wealth, because they were in a continuous conflict with the other regional kingdoms. So their treasury has completely gone out of the stock. So resources, wealth, everything was completely ended up for Rashtrakutas, due to which the dynasty shortly fall down. And with the coming of 10th century, the dynasty completely got ended up. So that is why, although at last Kannauj came into their control, but they couldn't retain it for a longer period of time. Now, when we look into the art, architecture, and literature of Rashtrakuta, so it is very interesting to know that ruler Amogavarsha was a very great scholar. He was having very keen interest towards the literature, to learn the new subjects, to understand the different aspects of different field. So he was very interested, and very great scholar of the time. And among the Rashtrakuta kings, he was among the most intelligent ruler also. During this time, we saw the emergence of regional languages. Regional languages, or the encouragement of having regional language using in the common platform, like in the administrative purpose also, because we saw that there is no central authority. The common language comes where there is a central authority, where entire country have to use the same language, or the entire region have to use same language. But here, when we saw that the people or the kings emerging in different parts of India, there are different regional cultures, regional languages are there, and kings are emerging out of those areas only. So definitely what happens, they are using their own vernacular or regional languages for their administrative purpose. And due to this, it becomes really very, very natural that in this time period, the people encouraged their regional languages to use in a common platform. Now, when we look or when we talk about the architecture, we saw two marvelous architecture of this time. First is rock cut Kailasha temple. Second is Elephanta caves. Although some historians claimed that yes, rock cut Kailasha temple, which is present day, these both architecture are located in Maharashtra only. So when we look into Kailasha temple and Elephanta caves, these two architecture were constructed during the time period of Krishna I, who was the Rashtrakuta king. But the mystery of Kailash temple is still very, very mysterious, and historians are still working on it and searching for it. So, why we are calling it as a rock cut Kailash temple? Kailash temple is basically, it is for Lord Shiva, and the temple means the temple belongs to Lord Shiva. Rock cut, why we are calling it? Because this temple is made out of cutting out of the rock. So there was a small, we can say, rock kind of mountain, not very long in a height, but it is completely carved out or cut out from that rock, and the people during that time made it a beautiful temple specifically for the devotees of Krishna, sorry, the devotees of Shiva. And same goes with the Elephanta caves, where we saw the images of Indian gods and specifically Lord Shiva. So this thing clearly indicates that Rashtrakutas were devotee of Lord Shiva. And Kailasha temple, Elephanta caves, these two marvelous architecture were constructed during the time period of Krishna I. Now we cannot say that there was only, there was only the presence of devotee of Lord Shiva. The society contains the different devotees for different gods, and there was no foundation which was restricted up by the Rashtrakuta kings. There were devotees of Vishnu also. The people were worshipping other deities and gods also. Buddhism was also flourishing. Jainism was there, and even Rashtrakutas promoted somewhere Muslim merchants also to worship their own god. They didn't restricted anyone, and they openly asked everyone to worship their god as per their choice. So some sort of the ideal or idea of secularism we can easily see, or we can easily trace out from the ancient and medieval times also. So this was the this is what we saw in the case of architecture during the time of Rashtrakutas. Now, when we saw during this time, there is one very important, we can say, point which we have to note it down, that Rajput kingdoms emerged during this time only, and Rajput kingdoms of this time were very powerful. Among although we just saw Rashtrakutas, we have done Palas, we have done Gurjara, Pratiharas. Among these all, Rajputs were very powerful. Although they were not all integrated, there were tussle, there were clashes among Rajput kingdoms also. But when we look into the kingdoms of Rajputs, they were very powerful. And that's why the region, the Indian subcontinent, saw a very dominant presence of Rajput kings during the same time period which we are studying from for Rashtrakutas, Palas and Pratiharas. And among those Rajput kingdoms, there are some prominent ones like Chahamanas or Chauhans. Chahamanas or Chauhans, they flourished over the Indian subcontinent from 8th century till 12th century, and they dominated the area over Delhi, Ajmer, and Ranthambore. And they were also dominant over some other parts of Rajasthan also, like Sirohi was there, Bundi, Kota. These were some other areas or region where we saw the presence of Chahamanas and Chauhans dominated over for the longer period of time. During the same time period, we saw that other kingdoms, other clans, or we can say the other parts of Rajput kingdoms were also emerging in the northern part of India. And why this was happening? Because the story goes back to the ancient period, the later phase of ancient period, when Harshavardhana was there. Harshavardhana was the ruler of Vardhana dynasty. He was very, very powerful, very, very influential ruler of the time, and he is one of the most famous ruler of ancient time period for his peace, prosperity, and stability in the political life. So from the Harshavardhana time, when he died, after that there was no central authority to took over the command over North India. And due to this, the regional powers emerged. And that is why we saw the emergence of Rajput kingdoms. Otherwise, before this, before the means during the time period of Harshavardhana, there was not as much emergence of regional powers. It was very, very limited, because he was having command, he was having authority over the northern part of India for a longer period of time. But after his death, the regional kingdoms had started coming up with their own authority and independence. So we saw that from the 8th century onwards till 12th century, the Rajput kings were having political dominance over the subcontinent. They were very powerful, and they retained their power for longer period of time. When we saw in the case of even Gurjara, Pratihara, Rashtrakutas, Pallavas, all the regional kingdoms, powerful kingdoms. But we saw that Rajputs retained their power for a longer period of time, and they were much more powerful. And there was a within their kingdom there was a stability, but outside that they are always in a conflict with each other. So for their political dominance over the area, we call early medieval period as a Rajput period. This is the reason why we call it as a Rajput period. Now on my screen, you can easily see left hand side, there is an image of Kailasha temple. This is what I was telling, that this was earlier it was a piece of rock, and out of that rock, big rock, sort of a small mountain only, and out of that this whole temple was carved out, and it was a mystery. Even archaeologists are still finding about it, that how this temple was built during that time. This is a great mystery. Same goes with the Elephanta caves. This is also rock cut cave, but it is not a traditional or the caves of hunter-gatherer time. It is a cave which includes beautiful architecture, interior designs, even the depiction of gods, carvings of beautiful god or deities.